The next morning, the schoolyard was crowded with students, everyone rushing toward the bulletin board for the intermediate class. Murmurs filled the air. What's going on? The board clearly stated, announcement about the class promotion exam. Due to numerous complaints regarding early promotion decisions, the school has decided to open the opportunity for all 7th grade students to participate. Those who pass will be promoted directly to 5th grade. The evaluation criteria will be based on the magic test with the spell teleportation, a spell taught in the 5th grade. Note, only one student will be promoted early. Previously, the evaluation was based on the field, but now the school has switched to using the teleportation spell as the test. Someone shouted loudly, all 7th grade students have the right to take the exam. If they pass, they'll skip 2 grades and go straight to 5th. The 7th grade students chattered excitedly. Teleportation, huh? Do you know how to use it? I don't. That's a spell for the 5th grade. Worry spread, theory was easy, but practice was a different story. One student said, a senior I know had to be hospitalized because they made a mistake while practicing that spell. A boy shouted, what? Then how can we possibly do it? Could it be that the school doesn't intend to promote anyone from our class at all? Suddenly, someone stepped forward. The 7th grade students quickly moved aside. Everyone focused their attention on him. He looked up at the bulletin board and said, teleportation, huh? After class, in front of the advanced class bulletin board, people buzzed with conversation. Is that true? Yeah, that's bullying, poor guy. He's only in 7th grade just because he can't use magic? But 7th grade hasn't even started learning magic yet. What does that have to do with anything? Someone explained the reason clearly. It's jealousy because he's dating Amy. Amy stood in front of the bulletin board, bewildered. So he really was being bullied? She realized maybe that's why he avoided her, not wanting her to get involved. Cerielle, standing beside Amy, analyzed, actually, the spiritual energy of 7th grade is still pretty weak, so this kind of thing is normal. I've seen it before. But early promotion isn't anything special. Amy turned and walked away. Cerielle called after her, where are you going? Amy replied, to see Shirone, Cerielle asked. What? Wait, what are you planning to do? Amy got angry and said, give him a lesson, of course. How dare he hide this from me? I'll gather all the 7th graders together, Cerielle quickly intervened. Are you crazy? You can't do that. Amy snapped back, stepping forward. Why not? This involves me too. Cerielle was pulled along by Amy, but still said, if it were you, would you want the person you like to get caught up in bullying? Cerielle shouted, if you go there, things will only get worse. Amy thought to herself, so stupid. She wondered, is he that old? Nonsense. I'm not even the one he likes. So why would he hide this from me? Cerielle said. Anyway, teleportation is too difficult for 7th graders. Amy frowned. If it's that hard, then good. For someone who's never studied magic, teleportation is too dangerous. Cerielle suggested, Amy, why don't you teach him? Wouldn't that make more sense? Amy snapped, why should I help that brat? I'm preparing for the upcoming exam. I don't have time for that. Cerielle nodded. Right, I forgot. Sorry. Amy said loudly, if he can't handle this on his own, then he's not worthy of being my boyfriend. Night fell at the academy, and something quietly appeared on a tree branch. A shadow moved at an extremely fast speed. The shadow landed and muttered, this absolutely means nothing else. Amy, wearing a cloak, sat on the tree, scolding herself. I'm only helping him because it's my responsibility. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared again. Amy stomped a few times and flew straight to Shirone's room. First, she had to make him beg for her help. Amy landed on the windowsill of Shirone's room, startling him. Who's there? Shirone shouted, who's there? Before he could finish. His mouth was covered. Amy smiled wickedly. I'm here to teach you a lesson. Amy flashed a bright smile. How dare you do that to me? Suddenly, Amy's expression turned serious when she saw Sienna sitting in Shirone's room. Sienna pushed up her glasses and asked, are you Amy? Could it be that you're still meeting at this late hour and sneaking into the boys' dorm at night? Amy quickly waved her hand. It's a big misunderstanding, miss. Really a terrible misunderstanding. Sienna immediately said, "Phew, the whole defense team has come over here. First, let's save you." She covered her mouth and laughed. "It's only been a short time since we last met, and you've already gotten so bold," Amy muttered. "Time? This is my first time here," Shirone thought to himself. "She's afraid meeting me will cause trouble, so she sneaks in here." Amy suddenly remembered and asked Sienna, "Miss, if you say so, why are you still here at this hour?" Sienna replied, "I came to give him some advice about the promotion exam." "The class atmosphere is very chaotic right now." Amy nodded. "I see." Shirone handed tea to Amy and said, "Senior, have some tea. Thank you. It smells wonderful. Where did you learn to brew tea?" While they were talking, Amy suddenly flinched, eyes wide as if about to slap Shirone. "That's not it, damn brat. Why do I have to endure such humiliation because of him?" Shirone hurriedly said, "I'm sorry." Amy's voice echoed throughout the dormitory. "Why didn't you tell me you were being bullied?" Sienna whispered, "Hey, you two, first sit down. Let me finish explaining about the promotion exam." Shirone took a sip of tea, thinking. After everything, he looked at himself and Amy sitting opposite Sienna and sighed helplessly. This was how things had turned out. Amy asked, "Isn't this teleportation test pretty dangerous?" "Shirone hasn't even learned magic yet," Sienna replied. "The headmaster gave that order directly." "I'm worried too, but obviously he must have some plan behind it," Amy thought. "No wonder it's the headmaster's usual antics." Shirone asked Amy, "Is it really that dangerous?" Amy nodded. "Of course. You know teleportation magic uses the property of light, right?" Shirone answered, "Yes. I've heard of the photochemical theory," Amy explained. "Light has what's called an absolute speed. They say nothing in the world can surpass the speed of light. Teleportation is a spell that uses that speed to transcend time and space," Shirone said. "By turning the body into light," Sienna, sitting beside them, added, "It sounds complicated, but actually teleportation isn't that extreme. Even beginners can easily succeed." "Then just try it. The necessary level for teleportation is near light speed, because this spell can be used even when you only understand a tiny fraction of the speed of light," Sienna said evenly. "However, because of that, the degree of photochemical transformation is reduced, leaving very little body mass." Shirone thought, "Learning it is easy, but if something goes wrong, it's extremely dangerous since it's at the speed of light." He looked up and said to Sienna, "Now I understand why teleportation is banned at the school." Sienna smiled. "You really do learn fast." Amy, sitting beside them, glanced sideways. "What's this? When did these two become so close?" "Ignoring me, Sienna has never been close to anyone like that," Shirone asked further. "So how can we pass this dangerous magic test?" Sienna said, "That," Amy cleared her throat and interjected, "you should practice somewhere without obstacles." Shirone dreamily said, "Is there such a place?" Amy held up one finger. "There is." Shirone looked up at the ceiling and suddenly realized, could it be in the air? The horizon boundary, the teleportation training ground, 1,000 meters high, 700 meters long. Sienna nodded. "Exactly. Although it hasn't been officially approved yet, in reality, there's no place more suitable than that spot." "Speaking of the mountain peak," Sienna said, "the test rule is to race from this mountain peak to the other." Shirone's mouth dropped open. "Sounds amazing. No obstacles at all up there." He smiled and asked Amy, "If you fall, you'll die, right?" Amy looked at Sienna. "But this is a race where the first to finish wins. Don't you think it's a bit too difficult for 7th graders?" Sienna's eyes darkened. "If no one reaches the finish line, then the student who teleports the farthest wins. Of course, the difficulty level of the test is set at level 1, with safety equipment to minimize danger as much as possible." She paused for a moment, then continued, "What worries me is if the students compete too fiercely, collisions are likely to happen." Amy glanced at Shirone, clearly targeting him. Sienna added, "You'll become the focus of the kids' competition." Shirone fell silent, thinking, can I do it? If it were just a difficult test, it would be fine, but he recalled the hostile glances everyone was giving him. I don't like the idea of standing alone against the whole class. I hate getting hurt by the harshness of competition. Shirone wondered, should I even take this test? At that moment, Sienna spoke up. I'm sorry. Shirone looked at her, recalling, you tried to get me into 5th grade right from the entrance exam when I enrolled. It seems because of your ambition that I'm in trouble now. Sienna lowered her head and said, that's why from today on, I will take responsibility for teaching you. Amy sat silently beside them. After a while, she looked up, her eyes dark as she stared at Sienna. Why do you have to go this far? Sienna replied. I just feel responsible because the promotion exam is unprecedentedly difficult. I will do my best. Amy patted her chest and said, no, that might make things worse. There will be rumors that the examiners are biased towards Shirone. Even if he passes, the result could be canceled. She looked directly at Sienna and said, let me teach Shirone. If it's only level 1 difficulty, that's fine, right? I can teach him. Shirone looked at Amy in confusion, thinking, Senior Amy, aren't you mad at me? Sienna adjusted her glasses and said, that's true, but Amy, you... Sienna asked Amy, you applied for early graduation promotion. Are you capable of taking care of Shirone? Shirone was startled, turning to look at Amy beside him, unable to believe it. Graduation class? He widened his eyes, thinking, oh my God, what does graduation class mean? The graduation class is the dream of every student in the Magic Academy to become a professional mage. There, students' abilities are recognized at a near professional level, especially if they are about to graduate from a prestigious school. They get featured in the Kingdom's Magic Academy magazine. However, once on that path, the peaceful school life ends, and ahead lies a hellish and terrifying training. The promotion application, the first test, Amy Karmis's official submission was sent. Amy would be the first to set foot in such a place. Shirone pressed close and asked Amy, how can that be? Isn't it too fast for our age? Amy avoided his gaze, looking away. That, Amy shed tears, thinking, it's all because of you. That brat really refuses to give up. Amy thought about Shirone, about to leap 2 grades at once. That kid is advancing too fast. The only place he can hide now is the graduation class. Amy quickly rushed toward the graduation class, the place known as Hell. Don't come here. Shirone looked at Amy with hopeful puppy eyes. So cool. I don't even dare dream of being number 1 in the advanced class. Yet she's confidently the first to apply for a place so far out of reach. Shirone fell silent, watching Amy and Sienna talking nearby. I think even in such an important situation, she's still here to help me. Over there, Amy laughed and said to Sienna, no matter how busy I am, there's nothing I can't do well. You should give up. Sienna smiled back and replied, I understand your feelings for your boyfriend, but at such a crucial time, it's better to let the teachers handle things. Sienna said that since this is Shirone's first time learning magic, having a teacher instruct him would be more effective. Her words fueled Amy's competitive spirit. She turned to Shirone and said, so, Shirone, you decide me or Miss Sienna? Shirone felt tense. Amy asked, wouldn't it be better to be taught by your girlfriend? Shirone smiled. I can do it myself. This time, both Sienna and Amy were stunned. What? The shout echoed throughout the dormitory. What? Amy yelled right into Shirone's face. You idiot, do you even know how rare this opportunity is? Shirone twisted his hands and replied, I don't want to bother the examiners, especially knowing that Senior has an important test coming up. Amy shouted. Others are even willing to spend a fortune hiring tutors there. Besides, aren't you the target of the whole class's competition? Amy continued, this isn't something you can handle alone. Shirone lowered his head. Isn't that why Senior urged me to advance to the graduation class early? If I hesitate, I won't be able to go any further. Shirone's words stunned Amy. He continued, for me, 5th grade is just a step on the journey to becoming a mage, just like Senior. Amy covered her mouth and coughed softly. Shirone looked at Amy and said, trust me, Senior. Although I can't be sure I'll pass the test, I will do my best and have no regrets. Sienna remained silent, listening to the two. When Shirone finished speaking, she stood up. I understand. If that is the student's wish, then as a teacher, I must accept it. She said goodbye. I won't stay any longer. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Same goes for the other students. Shirone stood up and bowed in thanks. Thank you very much for your concern, Sienna added. You all can stay and discuss more. As for Amy, she walked to the door, then looked back at Amy. Forget about today. But if you ever climb through the boys' dorm window again, you understand, right? Amy lowered her head. Yes, ma'am. Her spirit screams alive. Sienna left and Amy slumped down, breathing a sigh of relief. As she relaxed, Amy, suddenly startled, quickly stood up and said, I'm leaving too. Shirone bowed to Amy. Yes, sorry to trouble you all the way here. Shirone sincerely said, thank you very much, senior. Amy suddenly asked, hey, be honest, why have you been avoiding me? Shirone froze. Before he could answer, Amy continued, from the start, you could have told me you were being bullied. That's not something you have to endure alone. Amy turned away, murmuring. Could it be because of pride? She remembered what Cerielle said. If the person you like sees that, their pride will be deeply hurt. Amy stammered. Hurt pride, Shirone replied. It's not that I wanted to distance myself from you, Amy panicked, covering her mouth. So it's really, really true? Shirone went on, if you're wondering, it's because you're exactly my target. Amy fell silent, then muttered, yes, I knew that all along. Shirone scratched his face. Actually, from the very first day at school, I saw you, senior, at the top of the leaderboard. He recalled when he first arrived at school and saw Amy's name on the achievement board. Shirone said, at that time, I thought I wanted to study hard to be like you. On the 4th grade leaderboard, out of 42 students, first place was Karmis Amy. Shirone smiled, but back then, I never expected things to turn out like this. It's really awkward. If I told you I was being bullied, things might be even more awkward, Amy sneered. Target, huh? She cursed silently. Damn, being beaten by a kid. Amy remembered, if father knows anyone at the magic school, please introduce me. She looked coldly at Shirone, thinking it was a ridiculous coincidence. Amy softly asked, are you joking? Shirone looked confused. Yes. Amy shouted, target, my foot. Ridiculous. She stepped in front of Shirone, smiling and calling him senior this, senior that, but inwardly thinking, so you're secretly trying to catch up with me? Shirone looked confused, raising both hands to block in front of his chest. How could it mean that? I'm just complaining. Why is everything like this again? Amy pushed open the window. If you plan to surpass me, Amy put on her cloak, turned back and said, then don't call me senior anymore. Shirone stood there stunned, and Amy shouted, come compete with me openly and fairly. She climbed out the window. Better catch up with me soon or I'll make you call me senior for life. Suddenly, Shirone called out, Amy! Amy was surprised and alarmed, calling him by name right away. Shirone looked seriously at Amy inside the room. Wait a moment. I promise I will catch up to you. Amy smiled sadly, her face shadowed, radiating deadly intent. Just to catch me? She turned back to face Shirone, then flew out the window, whispering, I hope by then I still haven't graduated. Shirone clung to the window, watching her disappear immediately. He sighed, thinking, I refused help, but surely those attacking me are watching my every move. Determination shone clearly in Shirone's eyes. Now he must rely on his own feet. Only 1 month remained until the early promotion exam, as if the clock were running backward. The next day, after class, everyone buzzed with talk. Are you preparing for the promotion exam? Students exchange words. I just hired a tutor today. We have to study teleportation for a month. It's really dangerous. Yet 20 people still registered to take the exam. Theoretically, it's easy. If you apply the formula correctly, it's not too hard. 7th grade boys talked among themselves, the problem being application skills. A green-haired boy pointed at Shirone carrying a pile of books on the road. Hey, that kid signed up for the exam too? A stack of books fell, the cover reading Photochemical Theory. Shirone thought to himself, I said I would rely on myself, but looking at this pile of theory books, he felt overwhelmed. The main issue was application. In reality, the environment a mage faces constantly changes, especially with teleportation. Terrain information is crucial. Depending on the situation, you must adjust the degree of omnipotence and light. Shirone sat taking notes, and just the unit of measurement reached powers of 20/10. How could a person calculate that? He slapped his head repeatedly. No, don't give up. There's no reason they would set an impossible test. He reflected on what Sienna had said. Learning teleportation isn't complicated, but what if that doesn't apply to someone like him who's never studied magic? Shirone remembered Sienna's words that 7th graders would definitely succeed because they were educated from an early age and could easily hire expensive tutors. He felt like an outsider watching them. Sienna had once asked him, could he narrow that gap? Suddenly, Shirone spaced out. The image of Master Alpheus smiling at him appearing in his mind. A new rival of Shirone appeared. Someone clapped and praised, "Excellent!" That person looked at the tall young man's back through the haze and said, "You perform teleportation perfect truly, the son of Slider, the technical specialist of the Magic Association," he called out. Young Master Mark, 15 years old, in 7th grade, stood upright and said, "It's nothing. I'm just taught by a teacher with a level 9 certification." The other man handed him a towel to wipe his face. Mark said, "I was a bit nervous, but the test was quite easy." The man explained, "Because the test is simple, you can focus on your choices. Although mastering the perfect application of teleportation in 1 month is impossible, if you accelerate learning the necessary parts for the exam and spend the rest of the time practicing, you can definitely succeed." Mark smiled smugly. "Maybe I should thank that special dumbass." He wiped his sweat and said, "Thanks to him, I was promoted 2 grades in a short time." Mark drank water, then turned to ask the man, "By the way, what is that idiot doing?" The man replied, "Following the young master's orders, I'm monitoring him, but it seems he's just studying and reading books on his own." Mark frowned. "Self-studying with books? What? I thought with that kind of money he'd hire a top tutor. Is there something suspicious going on?" Mark ordered, "Keep watching him closely. He's not careless." His tone was steady. "Just reading a few books won't teach you how to use magic." Meanwhile, Shirone was diligently studying many books. He put down his pen, rested, and thought, "I've done my best. First, I spent a lot of time deeply understanding light. I memorized the theory without a single mistake. I'm not very sure, but time is running out. Training ground number 41 for 7th grade. It's nighttime, so only 1 or 2 dim lights flicker." Shirone stood on the ground, warming up. "Now I have to cast the spell. Nothing is impossible. I can only hope it works as I expect." Shirone's eyes glowed a deep, sorrowful blue. "First, open the magical field." As soon as he spoke, the light instantly shone brightly, applying photochemical theory. Shirone tried to maintain focus. "I'm standing between omnipotence and omniscience." The light grew more brilliant. Shirone was almost enveloped in blue. The word "I" at the center gradually blurred and disappeared. Shirone's body suddenly glowed golden. He joyfully looked at himself. "All right, it's working," Shirone shouted. "Now, teleport." His eyes widened. A human cannot calculate the amount of light. Shirone recalled the teaching. When a mage concentrates, their minds become sharp enough to sense everything around them. It is said that exceptional mages can even count the number of leaves from a great distance. Someone placed small coins in their hands and explained that this is an extremely sensitive mental state, also called the magical field. Anthea shared that when reaching this state, a mage perceives the outside world in a supernatural way, allowing them to control phenomena. Before Shirone, it was as if a new land opened up, not about calculating quantities, but sensing everything. Time passed, with only 13 days left until the teleportation exam. 9 days remaining in the countdown. Someone at the academy exclaimed, "What the hell is that?" All eyes turned to the back of the class, staring at his face. The short-haired female student and her pink-haired friend, who usually looked annoyed, also shifted their gaze toward the back of the class. A voice rang out, "He's training without protection. Impossible." All eyes turned to Shirone, whose face was still wrapped in bandages. Shirone focused on writing and thinking. His first attempt at teleportation had failed. Feeling somewhat helpless, he told himself to fix the mistakes. There was no choice but to keep practicing. Shirone kept falling to the ground, clutching his niece. This time the injury was to his knee. The countdown showed 8 days remaining. Shirone's notebook was filled with writing. He remained focused, calculating errors down to just 2 microseconds. With 7 days left, he thought that was a foolish method. 6 days passed. At night, the training ground echoed with constant collisions. 5 days remaining. Shirone still kept falling. 4 days left. He resolved. Once more, the body will memorize it like instinct. The countdown ticked to 3 days, 2 days, and finally just 1 day remaining. Shirone stood under the light, breathing heavily. Sweat dripped onto the ground as he wondered, what should I do? Thankfully, the exam is coming soon. Every time he corrected one mistake, another appeared. He wiped his face and thought, there's nothing left to fix now. I have to do this. I must. Shirone silently took a deep breath. The space before him began to blur. He slapped his face repeatedly to stay alert, connecting everything together. I can do this. I have to. He tried again, planting his foot firmly on the ground. Shirone focused and thought, teleport. A flash of light flickered and shot forward. Opening his eyes, he saw himself hovering just above the ground. With a soft thud, Shirone gently fell to the earth and sighed in relief. This time, no injuries. Lying flat on the ground, he smiled with satisfaction. I did it. How far can I go now? He kept thinking until he unknowingly dozed off, fully aware he didn't have time to lie there. I need to practice linking. I need to pray. At dawn the next day, Mark stood high above, looking out over the campus. The man beside him called, Young Master. He asked Mark, how do you feel? Mark turned confidently and replied, very good. Today will be a historic day because I will be promoted to 5th grade. He narrowed his eyes. 700 meters is nothing. I will do it easily. Inside the academy, the 7th grade class was still mostly empty. Maria approached the classroom door when she heard a voice call, Hey, Maria, have you given up on the exam? Maria was startled, thinking, it must be him. Maria asked, aren't you at the training ground? Are you studying? Mark laughed loudly. Do I look like a fool failing at studying? He arrogantly asked Maria, what are you doing here? Is that why your grades are terrible? Mark mocked. You should go learn from the training zones. The best way to learn is to watch and learn from those better than you. Maria turned to leave, hesitating as she said, that's true. Good luck. I hope you pass. Mark laughed and asked, really? You want me to pass? Maria's hand trembled. Mark stepped closer and said, you're really something, you know that? Like sneaking around with the teachers. Maria reacted, asking, how did you know? Her answer made Mark laugh loudly. Foolish. I was just testing if it was you. Maria's school bag dropped to the ground. Mark said, I have many ways to gather information. A shy girl like you going to the teacher's office is a bit suspicious. Mark pressed Maria against the wall. Because we're classmates, I treat you well. But once I'm your senior, he threatened Maria, do you have any idea what will happen next? Seeing Maria trembling like a scared animal, Mark sighed and stood up straight. She really is a coward. How can she even think of becoming a mage? Even though she's 4 years older than me, she's still my classmate. Mark left with a final remark, just wait and see. Behind him, Maria sat down in fear, shaking and covering her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Mark pushed open the door and loudly asked, is the plan finalized? Are you all prepared? 4 others in 7th grade turned to look. One replied, 2 will follow Shirone closely from the start, and 2 others will protect him. Mark said, so there will be 2 chances to make him fail. Mark said, the distance for the first round is 10 meters, so push him out at least 10 times. The gray-haired boy nodded and asked, you really will do as you promised if we complete this, right? Mark's eyes flashed. Of course. Once I get promoted, I'll find a tutoring job for you. You won't have to worry about finding work, even if you don't graduate. Mark assured, my father is the technical advisor of the Magic Association. If you help me, I will never forget it. If I can help, I definitely will. He thought to himself smugly. No mistakes can be allowed. A genius must never let their guard down. Deep within the mist-covered mountain forest, a bridge blocked the path impassable. 7th grade students who hadn't registered for the exam gathered in one spot. The short-haired girl who had once opposed Shirone's promotion sighed, "Is this the final round?" "I'm so tired," the pink-haired girl added. "There are more people than I expected, especially." They glanced at the 5th grade students standing ahead with intimidating expressions. She continued, "Those seniors from 5th grade, they're tense, thinking hard. If any kid manages to get into our class, I hope it's an adorable one." Everyone laughed and said, "That would be fun." 4th and 6th graders have also come to watch. The examiners arrived right on time, including the headmaster. A beam of light shot up into the sky. Athela heard the signal and turned around, saying, "It's time." She looked at the students standing at the starting line. The test would begin in 10 minutes. Someone cursed, "Damn it, that's supposed to be a cliff. Where's the bridge?" Another person replied, "Idiot, that is the bridge." Some looked down and saw only 3 or 4 thin ropes stretched across. Then they shouted, "What, a bridge like that?" Nearby, someone was using binoculars to observe the group of contestants. "Here it is. This is the best spot." Cerielle excitedly held the binoculars, standing there watching clearly. Amy crossed her arms behind her and said, "Hey, we don't have time. Why are you watching those dumb 7th graders?" Cerielle replied, "What are you talking about? I have to cheer for your boyfriend. Give him some luck." Amy sighed. "Those who can pass will pass. Those who fail will fail. What's the point of cheering?" She bit her finger, pondering. "Anyway, can he really teleport?" The black-haired boy stepped forward and called, "Mark, he just started warming up and asked if you found Shirone yet." The black-haired boy replied, "No, here's the thing," the boy continued. "He's not here." Mark glanced and said, "What?" Meanwhile, Shirone still lay face down on the ground, an ant crawling on his face. Suddenly, Shirone's eyes snapped open, startling the ant away. He sprang up like a spring and shouted, "What time is it now?" Someone else also shouted loudly, "What? He's absent?" Amy looked through the binoculars. "What did you say? Shirone is missing?" Cerielle panicked. "I'm not sure. I've looked everywhere but can't find him." Amy hesitated, worried, thinking, could it be he failed to use magic? See, I told you self-studying teleportation is really difficult. On the other side, the students taking the exam stood before a sheer cliff. Someone murmured, "This is a cliff, not a bridge." Athela said, "The rule is simple. When the teacher signals, you move to the cliff on the other side. Whoever travels the farthest by teleportation passes the test." The 7th graders looked at each other. "Really?" One stepped forward to look and asked, "You mean we have to get across there? If we don't finish the test, do we fall down?" The 7th grade students doubted, is there really safety equipment down there? Thad stood before them sternly saying, "If you're afraid, then quit." The 7th grade examinees turned to look at him. Thad continued, "As you know, death can occur in any magic school program." With a serious tone, Thad added, "This is an early promotion exam to select students suitable for 5th grade. If you can guarantee your own protection, participate." But with such weak determination, he coldly warned, "You still have time to leave." Outside, he appeared serious, but inside, Thad chuckled quietly. "They're hesitating, huh? Putting on a bit of pressure to prevent accidents is necessary." He glanced toward one side where the real danger awaited. Thad glanced at Mark's group standing with arms crossed, those participating solely for competition. Mark sneered, "Why should mediocre people waste their effort on this test? They'll only be stepping stones for me in society." He smirked and added, "As for that umbrella kid, I heard he's self-studying to pass. He's bound to fail, a complete amateur." Mark looked ahead, thinking, "I still have to prepare thoroughly." Just then, Attila raised her hand, signaling, Everyone, line up. The exam is about to begin. Suddenly, she saw something and fell silent. From afar, someone came running headlong. It was Shirone, looking utterly exhausted. Everyone was stunned to see him arrive. Shirone propped himself on his knees, panting, and said, "I'm sorry." He looked up at Atella and asked, "Am I still allowed to take the exam?" Atella quickly ran over to Shirone. On the other side, through binoculars, Cerielle also spotted him. Amy snatched the binoculars from Cerielle's hand and shouted, "What the hell took you so long, you idiot?" Amy watched closely while biting her lip, thinking, why does that kid's face have so many wounds? Could he have gotten hurt during practice? At the examiner's area, Sienna turned to ask Master Alfista Headmaster. Atella signaled, wanting to ask, should we penalize the late student? Alpheus nodded. Adapting to circumstances is also a student's skill. Proceed with the exam as scheduled. Sienna fell silent for a moment, then replied, understood. Immediately after, an orange flare was shot into the sky. Atella turned and shouted, prepare! The exam will begin as planned. Atella looked at Shirone, who was struggling to stand, and said, Shirone, if you want to give up, just tell me. Shirone dragged his steps forward. Thank you for your concern, but I'm fine. Someone raised a hand calling to Shirone, stand over here. He responded, dazed, thank you. The person who spoke glanced at someone standing nearby and signaled, first step succeeded, eliminate that kid within 10 moves. Shirone bowed his head, panting, sweat pouring down. He glanced ahead, silently telling himself, focus, gather all my strength. Atella raised her hand high and said, from now on, the early promotion exam for 7th grade officially begins. Very one, get ready. She checked the watch in her hand. Everyone lined up in position, all bent down into a ready stance. Mark glanced at the person beside him and signaled, follow my plan exactly. The other nodded in agreement. Shirone focused his mind as Atella fired a flare into the sky as a signal. All the students participating in the exam dashed forward at once. Shirone also plunged ahead, running like everyone else. Two opponents closely followed behind, exchanging nods. The clock ticked away. After many rigorous training sessions, the kids had come this far, but this was their first time seeing the cliff. What would it feel like to have the vast sky beneath their feet? The burning sensation spreading through their toes, excitement or fear, this was a world they had never known. The children devised only one strategy. Each student ran headlong, determined to claim first place. Every student secretly believed the chance to be number one was entirely possible. 2 seconds into the exam, the distance to the cliff was 20 meters. Mark was also running at full speed. He thought, running fast doesn't guarantee first place. What matters is using teleportation at the right moment. According to theory and practice, the key to victory is timing the jump perfectly. The jump's position determines the outcome. Whether the first or second attempt doesn't matter as long as you have the courage to do it. A red-haired student misstepped. The distance to the cliff remained quite far. He took a risk, shouting, whatever happens, happens. Immediately, he vanished in a flash of golden light. Nearby, another student hurriedly said, me too. One by one, everyone activated teleportation as 3 seconds passed, with only 5 meters left to the cliff. The leading group took off. Someone shouted, damn it, I'm definitely going to make it. With 3 meters left, another student rushed forward. One of Mark's comrades ran up from behind, hurriedly apologizing. Mark, I'm going ahead, he shouted. What am I supposed to do if the escort leaves first? Mark clenched his teeth in anger. Cowards! He kept running forward, worried. What if I fall? With 2 meters left, Mark leapt. The exam time had reached 3.5 seconds. Shirone still charged ahead. One of Mark's men tasked with holding Shirone back also ran, thinking, why does this crazy guy keep sticking to me? Another boy hesitated. There's no one else left but us, so someone shouted, I'm going first, and immediately vanished. The two assigned to restrain Shirone began using magic as well. Shirone kept running with only 1 meter remaining. 3.7 seconds had passed. He felt, not yet. He pushed off right at the cliff's edge, determined, I have to catch up to them. Amy's group gasped in shock. Even the examiners near Sienna were surprised. Itella stood watching anxiously, the murmurs fading. Is he okay? He jumped behind. Shirone Ariane crossed the 2-meter mark. The exam time had reached 4 seconds. He recalled a moment at the Ogent family mansion, similar to the previous sword duel, first time he saw someone not tremble standing before their father. Aren't you scared at all? Was Rian's surprised question, as he himself couldn't look his father in the eye. A year earlier, in Rian's room at the Ogent estate, Shirone heard somewhat embarrassed praise. Oh, that? It's nothing special. I once read in a book that the nature of fear comes from imagination. What astonished Shirone even more was Rian's nightly oath, how that oath was sworn to him. Even he hadn't expected it. Remembering the book Only Humans Fear the Sword, Shirone calmly explained, imagine you'll die right after. For example, even when jumping off a cliff, we only truly die upon landing, right? So I stopped imagining the future and focused on the present, giving my all to find a solution. To avoid fear, he stopped dreaming about what hadn't happened and concentrated fully on the moment, striving to find the answer. That helped him a great deal. Hearing Shirone's explanation, Ryan couldn't believe it and felt foolish. Shirone, are you stupid? 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 Being called stupid, Shirone was startled, slightly surprised. He calmly spoke about dangerous things as if they were no big deal. Ryan, sweating profusely, grabbed Shirone's shoulder tightly and shouted, if you fall off the cliff, you'll die. Definitely you'll die. What the hell are you talking about? Seeing Rian misunderstand and worry so much, Shirone hurriedly explained, no, that's not what I meant. Think carefully. I don't die the moment I jump down. Back in reality, all the students and teachers watching were extremely worried and anxious. The watch in Atella's hand ticked away second by second. At the cliff, all the students participating in the exam had turned into streaks of light soaring ahead. Only Shirone was just beginning to jump down. His entire body glowed with a soft golden light as he started to open his magical field. The wind resistance from teleportation exerted great pressure on his body. I can't lose focus. If my magical field breaks, it's all over. The moment Shirone fell, his body was enveloped in a brilliant layer of light. The surrounding space began to shift. His body flew upward, racing at the speed of light, gradually catching up to the students ahead. Shirone overtook that group. One student noticed and shouted, again. Everyone was stunned beyond belief. He actually caught up and even surpassed them. What? He jumped late yet surpassed them by so much? Seeing Shirone pass by, that student couldn't believe it. On the other side of the mountain, the watching students cheered joyfully as he entered the race. Everyone shouted, encouraging Shirone, it started, keep going. It was just a fleeting moment to the naked eye. But did you see that? Yeah, that's the new student who just jumped down. The 5th grade students were deeply impressed by Shirone's outstanding performance. They couldn't believe a new student could do that. Amy whispered, he's learning magic for the first time, isn't he? Cerielle, astonished and a bit shaky, asked, even Amy doesn't know the answer? Even she was too stunned to speak. Calm again, she understood why he started later than everyone else, so she was no longer surprised. Indeed, despite the late start, he made up for it. As long as he maintained a steady pace, Shirone would always lead. Back in the race, Mark was in the lead, but he knew it wouldn't be long before Shirone caught up. Damn it, what is the ambush team even doing? Though the gap ahead was no longer an issue, Mark glanced behind and tried to accelerate. But it was too late. In the blink of an eye, Shirone overtook him and took the lead. That kid is right in front of me, far away, in the forest near the mountain range where the race took place. Maria was slowly stepping into the woods. In Maria's village, it wasn't that she lacked talent from the start, but jealousy from classmates along with her own insecurity and weakness held her back. In the teacher's room, when asked about her grades, Maria nervously kept her head down and replied with a trembling voice, "Sir, it's because the others keep bothering me." Before she could finish, the cold teacher interrupted. "It's natural for classmates to hold each other back. This is a competition. All the other students passed and were promoted. At the end of the third rule, the examinees were divided into 3 groups. The leading group consisted of the privileged students and Mark's strike team. The middle group stayed about 3 meters behind. The last group included those who used magic first but fell behind due to fear. Damn it, I can't even fly with magic. According to Senior's words, even if you fall, it should be safe, right? After flying for a while, a careless student sneezed. That sneeze caused the student to lose balance and fall. Following were many students from the third group, all falling down the cliff, screaming in panic, "Help, teacher! I give up!" Watching the falling students, the spectators and teachers just laughed. As expected, those who couldn't overcome fear were the first to fall. The teacher then recorded the names of the eliminated students on paper. The eliminated students continued to fall, screaming relentlessly, "Where's the safety equipment? How much longer do we have to keep falling?" When everyone reached a certain height, a large fan at the base of the cliff activated. The fan generated strong winds, catching the falling students and helping them land safely. Those still conscious lay flat on the ground, lamenting, "This is outrageous. You should have warned us." After that shock, the eliminated group shouted in frustration because the seniors hadn't given them any notice. They didn't realize this was just a small gift the seniors deliberately left for the juniors. In the end, all the students in the last group were eliminated. At the 200-meter mark, the remaining students showed signs of exhaustion, panting heavily. "I can't go any further." One student, too tired to maintain teleportation, collapsed. The familiar cries rang out again, "Teacher, help me." Many in the middle group had already given up. Back to the leading group, Mark was still pushing to accelerate. His magical talent was also average. So far, no sign of fatigue, idiots. If you're not capable, don't even dream of climbing higher. Those in the middle group will all give up anyway. Mark sneered inwardly, hearing the cries of surrender behind him. Despite trying to accelerate and close the gap with Shirone, the distance between them remained quite large. "Damn it, I don't know if it's my mood, but it feels like the gap between me and that kid is getting wider." Mark gritted his teeth in frustration. He kept pushing faster, annoyed whenever he thought of him. "He doesn't even show signs of tiredness, show. Is that possible? He should have died before the start." Suddenly, ahead, Shirone underwent a change as a surge of energy flowed into his body. Mark, witnessing everything from behind, thought, "What the hell is that?" Shirone abruptly sped up. Itella used her magical eyes to observe all the students' exams and had to admire his talent. Shirone's talent is truly remarkable. Even I have to use mental stabilization techniques multiple times, yet Shirone maintains a pace like a machine. The mental stabilization method Itella used involved objectifying oneself to steady the mind. At the same time, Shirone generated a unique momentum. Not only Itella, but all the examiners nodded in approval of this observation. Some teachers also praised Mark for his decent magical skills. However, Mark still showed impatience typical of youth, causing his pace to be less stable compared to his classmates. Moreover, there were praises for Itella's talent. She truly was outstanding. Despite the long distance, she could accurately detect everything thanks to her empathy. It was remarkable. Thad stood nearby, frowning and silent. The headmaster watched with great satisfaction at Shirone's displayed talent. Cerielle held binoculars and asked Amy beside her in amazement, "He can use mental stabilization on his own? That's impressive. Where did Shirone learn those advanced skills?" Amy stood silently across, not answering Cerielle's question. Cerielle watched the competition intently, though she already knew the truth but kept silent. Learning it? Ordinary mages are taught to consciously use the unconscious world, but this kid is different. He's almost directly controlling his subconscious. That's not something you can learn. She watched him pull ahead. Mark knew he couldn't win fairly and had to continue with the plan. Without hesitation, Mark suddenly shouted, "Start!" Receiving the signal, 2 underlings immediately launched the prearranged scheme. Even at their limits, they thought, "Damn, he gave the signal, but why now?" They forced their remaining spiritual energy one last time. To execute the plan, one underling decided to risk everything, pouring all his remaining spiritual power to accelerate to the limit. Shirone sensed the movement in an attack twice. Someone must have changed the pace, right? In a brief moment of distraction, a shadow suddenly appeared before Shirone, startling him. A student surged ahead, forcing Shirone to react too late and slow down to dodge. What's going on? He hadn't yet understood when another student charged toward him. Shirone widened his eyes as the student rushed at him. The underling, knowing his action was wrong but unable to resist orders, thought, "Sorry, but you have to stop playing here." At the same moment, he shut his eyes tightly and lunged at Shirone full speed, intending to knock him down. Shirone stared in shock, unable to believe the student truly meant to crash into him. That student's eyes, shut tight, teeth clenched, filled with anxiety, hovered midair. In that instant, he opened his eyes and looked directly at Shirone with a suspicious gaze. The student, falling gradually, looked at Shirone, who was suspended in midair. Thoughts raced through his mind. He's incredible, huh? In this dangerous void, a few students are already playing with death. It's over. At that moment, Shirone struggled to stay conscious. His hand floated in the deep void, the vast blue sky unfolding before him. The temperature shifted, fatigue began to creep in. With final determination, Shirone's emerald eyes flared once more. "I must not faint focus." A brilliant light like the sun shot upward into the blue sky. The falling student saw this and thought, "He's truly a demon, not human." With that thought, the student continued falling alongside several others. Below, the fifth grade students were still buzzing with discussion. Didn't his movement just now seem a bit strange? Could it be a wrong direction? One student immediately said, "They want to crash straight into that kid in front. That's their real goal." Two students turned to him utterly surprised. "How do you know that?" Who would deliberately cause an accident? When Iruki's name was mentioned, he calmly sat cross-legged, arms folded in front of the other students. Iruki used his hands to demonstrate, one hand clenched into a fist, the other spread open and held upright, then brought them close together, saying, "One blocks the race path ahead, the other attacks from the side." With a composed expression, Iruki analyzed that this was a brilliant strategy to block both moves. The advantage of teleportation and spatial jumps: if the newcomer doesn't follow the correct race path, a terrible accident is sure to happen. After finishing his analysis, Iruki casually waved his hand with a smirk. "Well, if it were me, I'd easily escape using motion equations." Hearing that, the two students just frowned, full of disgust, then turned away with a truly fake, disdainful attitude. Their eyes met, but according to Iruki, there's no way the teachers wouldn't notice what's going on. No one knows what they're thinking, while the headmaster and Sienna still focused intently on the exam. Mark, with his abilities, charged forward confidently, laughing loudly. First place is mine." Mark smiled triumphantly, thinking, "Everyone must be so jealous, stupid classmates, and even the sixth grade will be my juniors. Just watch." Mark's confident blue eyes gleamed brighter. "Here is my talent." Shirone kept striving to catch up to Mark's glowing magical thread. He thought to himself, "Mark's condition is excellent. He will surely complete the exam. If I want to win, I must be faster." But rushing the teleportation distance could cause the temperature to break down. Determined, Shirone's eyes burned with resolve. "I'll go at a different pace." Shirone's magical light suddenly accelerated, shooting ahead faster by half a beat than Mark. The crowd erupted, cheering excitedly. "Shirone's caught up. Now it's just those two, Mark. Speed up." Amy held binoculars with both hands, her face full of astonishment. His body isn't in good condition, yet he's still using magic so powerfully. Cerielle grabbed Amy's arm, curious. "Let me see more." Suddenly, Amy dropped the binoculars, eyes wide with shock. "That is..." Mark kept charging forward, stammering, "What is that?" A coil, like magical thread, lunged swiftly at Mark. Fearfully, Mark dodged aside as the thread flew past. "What the hell is that?" Still flustered, Mark turned to find Shirone right behind him. A warning appeared. Difficulty level of the impassable bridge activated. Everyone was stunned by the warning. Level 10. Shirone stood frozen in shock. Both Mark and Shirone stared at the dangerously tangled magical matrix before them. Long strands continuously shot out, forming a massive wall of obstacles. What the hell? What does level 10 mean? In front of everyone, Sienna quickly called out, "Teacher Thad, I'll check the equipment room." Thad immediately ran off while speaking. Shortly after, Thad flew up using magic. A bright, magical beam shot into the sky. Sienna hurriedly said, "Headmaster, we should stop the exam." Another teacher objected, "But this is a test for promotion by 2 grades. If canceled, the noble families will react fiercely." "What will we do then?" Headmaster Amphius kept watching the ongoing exam attentively. Hearing the teacher, Amphius angrily shouted, "Now you're worried about that? Signal to stop the exam immediately." A magical fairy flew up and appeared before Shirone and Mark, startling both. Shirone hovered midair, looking at the signal in front of him. The exam had been stopped. Meanwhile, Thad's magical beam had arrived. Stepping out of the magic, Thad hurriedly said, "I just saw a yellow signal. Could the exam be canceled?" "And here's another pile of complaints on my desk," Thad muttered as he hurried to the equipment room, loudly scolding. "Greg, did you drink again last night? You know how important today's test is." This time, I swear, Thad grabbed the door handle and tried to open it but couldn't. He paused, suspicious. "Locked? Seems it's not a mistake." Thad gathered magical energy, a flash of light bursting briefly. He halted, exclaiming, "Huh? Someone's in front of the door." A blue light appeared, revealing the scene inside. Behind the door, 2 figures, one slumped over a desk, the other sitting on the floor before the control panel. Thad raised his hand, aiming magic at the door. "Who's there? Open the door now, or I'll blow it up." A voice echoed, "Go ahead, I beg you." Anyway, even if I disappear, no one would know. Thad froze. That voice stirred a faint memory. He clasped his hands. Behind him stood a young student. "You are?" Thad exclaimed in surprise. "Maria?" Maria sat by the door, clutching her legs tightly, trembling as she suddenly stood up. Teacher Thad immediately recognized the situation and urgently knocked on the door repeatedly. "Do you know what trouble you're causing? Open the door quickly, and I'll treat this as an accident and only give you a light punishment," Maria shouted. "No, it's already over anyway. If Mark gets promoted, I'll have to live a life like hell again. Dying here won't be any different." "What?" Thad was stunned to hear this. "Better this way," Maria yelled, trembling as she hugged her legs tightly. Thad sighed, closed his eyes, and said, "I understand. Do what you want." With tears in her eyes, Maria suddenly looked up. "If you don't want me to open it, then don't. Actually, there's nothing urgent. Just as you wish." The exam was canceled. A bright yellow signal flashed before Shirone and Mark. Mark gritted his teeth in frustration, thinking, "Stop the exam? Don't joke. The promotion opportunity is right in front of me." He glanced sharply at Shirone behind him. "Better reconsider. No matter what, we can't leave now. The chance to defeat that guy may never come again." Shirone panted from exhaustion, his sharp gaze still unwavering. Mark scowled at Shirone. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted. 2 beams of light rushed forward. The maze fired out dangerous magical rays. The headmaster, Shirone, and Mark plunged straight into the maze. Streams of glowing projectiles flew out relentlessly. Sienna clasped her mouth in shock. "No!" The headmaster clenched his fist, his face filled with anger. "These fools again." Sienna panicked, watching the 2 rush blindly into danger, her heart burning with worry. She shouted, "Stop this immediately. It's too dangerous." "What is Thad doing, headmaster?" All the teachers hurried toward the headmaster for guidance. The headmaster was furious, his hands tightly clenched into fists, his face no longer gentle. His eyes gleamed sharply as he watched the 2 enter the maze. Filled with disappointment, he thought, "I thought if it were him, things would be different. If he's blinded by momentary greed and makes reckless decisions, he'll never find his way out of the maze. Inside the maze, Shirone kept weaving through, searching for an exit. The watching students were now frantic, anxiously restless. Oh God, what should we do? What should we do now? Amy and Cerielle, hands covering their mouths, called out to their close friend, standing beside them, unable to find words. Amy was frustrated and helpless, watching the contest continue with no way to intervene. Those idiots. Level 10 is for professionals. From the cliff, dense black strands shot out, forming all kinds of shapes. They surged fiercely towards Shirone, forcing him to dodge hurriedly. The trap's speed was overwhelming dodge 1, and another immediately appeared, leaving almost no time to calculate. If this continued, his spiritual energy would be drained. Elsewhere, Mark confidently rushed into the maze. Either way, both of us will be eliminated. Whoever goes the farthest wins. Maybe if I perform well here, I'll be recognized. Mark's mind was full of these thoughts as he sped forward without hesitation. He weaved swiftly through the maze's gaps. As he moved, he smugly watched Shirone struggling to dodge and taunted. How's that? Changed my technique yet? You'll be stuck there forever. The dense, pitch-black maze walls still surrounded Shirone. He dodged the incoming maze blocks while searching for an escape, but when he saw Mark charging straight ahead, he wanted to warn him too late. At the control room, red lights flashed on the screen, alarms blared, and Maria's choked voice asked, "Teacher, what is competition really?" Maria sat against the door, hugging her legs tightly, sobbing, thinking about lies that push others into the abyss. Is this the kind of competition the Academy wants? Thad sat leaning against the back of the door, trying to comfort Maria. You misunderstand, Maria interrupted loudly. Don't lump me together with you. A teacher considered a genius like you should know better. Her voice broke as tears streamed down her face. I followed the teachings, endured patiently. But at this school, who remembers a talentless student? I'm just ordinary. Noticing Maria's emotions were fragile, Thad gently spoke. You know, I graduated from this school too. When I was in the graduation class, you were just a new student. Hearing this, Maria stopped crying, surprised he still remembered after so many years. She thought to herself, after all, I once heard rumors about a genius named Thad studying at this school. Thad frowned, a bit nostalgic, and began to recount. Her voice trembled from crying as she replied, No, I've never heard that story. I was always at the bottom of the class, repeating 5th grade for 5 years. Growing more frustrated watching my friends advance easily, Thad continued, sharing memories of the academy tinged with nostalgia and loss. No way, you're the teacher now? Maria said skeptically. Thad laughed loudly, cutting her off before continuing. One day, the headmaster caught me and scolded me. What? That kid beat me up first. One evening, a voice called out in a hidden corner of the academy, Thad. It was just some struggling. Why would the teacher intervene? Thad, his face covered in wounds like he'd been in a fight, replied stubbornly, Usually I don't care about these things, but at that moment, do you know what a mage must never do? The headmaster interrupted, That is to compare yourself to others. Hit to the core, Thad flinched, avoiding eye contact, but still argued, Wait, what are you saying? Are you preaching now? Ignoring Thad's attitude, the headmaster calmly continued, Mages call this the existence that erases the self. Focus only on yourself. If you can do that, then you truly erase the self. If you keep watching others on your path, one day you will lose your way. Inside the maze, Mark confidently charged forward until he noticed something wrong. Seeing the nets ahead and behind, Mark realized they were locked. Cornered with no escape, panic overtook him. Fear surged, clouding his mind. All Mark could feel was regret. I shouldn't have taken this path. Trapped and surrounded by advancing maze blocks ready to attack, his mind had but one thought. Is this how I'm going to die? Filled with regret and terror, he shouted for help. Save me. Outside, everyone watching saw Mark in danger, their worry and fear growing. Mark yelled, No. Just as it seemed Mark would die, a hand reached out. The hand grabbed Mark's collar and pulled him away, saving him at the last moment. Grabbing Mark by the collar, Shirone gritted his teeth and pushed himself to escape the maze's attack. The seventh graders cheered joyfully as they saw Shirone successfully rescue Mark. Mark is saved. Shirone saved him. Suddenly, a student realized both were still in the competition and asked Mark, "But this is a test. Why did he save his rival?" Immediately, another student shouted at him, "Idiot! What does winning matter if someone dies right in front of you?" And then another student noticed something special about how Shirone saved Mark. How could he perform teleportation like that? Above, Mark struggled and screamed for help. "Save me! Save me!" Mark's cries annoyed Shirone, who shouted, "Shut up! I'm thinking here. These traps are illusions. I have to see through them to find a way out." Moving forward while figuring out an escape, Shirone also had to carry Mark, which tired him a bit. Shirone used the speed of light to fly upward, carrying Mark. The traps still chased them as Shirone moved. The traps in the maze seemed alive, chasing Shirone closely. Flying upward was useless. He had to avoid them. Students below, seeing the futile flight, shouted warnings. "Look, flying up won't save you." The maze pressed on, and Shirone knew dragging Mark along was pointless, but he couldn't think of a better way right now. Increasing the distance doesn't help. What should I do? An idea flashed in his mind. That's right, there's a way. I need to turn back. Without hesitation, Shirone sped up and pulled Mark around. Seeing him turn back, Iruki excitedly clenched his fists and shouted, "Exactly! Moving forward isn't always right. Sometimes turning back is the answer." Elsewhere, Shirone's classmates were bewildered. "He's only been practicing for a month and already this much. I thought he got here through connections and couldn't even use magic. Maybe we misunderstood him?" "You can do it." Despite misunderstandings, all the students loudly cheered for Shirone. "Danger ahead, avoid it." Cerielle also marveled at his efforts, not just for the exam, but for something greater. Across the way, Amy affirmed, "Yes, he trains hard not just to pass the test. The promotion exam is just a small part of the journey to becoming a mage. He simply wants to be a talented mage," Cerielle added. In the control room, Thad continued comforting Maria. "Competition is merely a tool to reach the goal faster. Going slowly is fine too. Once you cross the finish line, everyone becomes a mage." Thad's words echoed. At that moment, all the teachers, students, and even the headmaster were speechless with astonishment as they watched Shirone dodge through the maze. Behind the door, Maria weakly regretted, "Is it not too late now?" Knowing Shirone had succeeded, Thad encouraged her. "I will help you, so why not be a little braver?" Every word gave Maria more courage. She burst into tears, a mix of regret and relief. Back at the competition, unexpectedly, the headmaster spoke up. "Let the exam continue." His words made Sienna and the other teachers turn around in surprise. The headmaster remained resolute, speaking firmly, "I will take responsibility for everything." Ahead of them was a scene filled with danger, and the crowd's cheers echoed. "Go on, it's dangerous. Dodge." Shirone, with unwavering determination, moved forward. One hand pulling Mark, he rushed into the dangerous maze. The traps seemed alive, constantly shifting and moving. They were unpredictable, defying all rules. Shirone wanted to save Mark but couldn't pinpoint the exact location. Mark screamed in fear, "I don't want to die." In contrast, Shirone calmly thought. First, he felt the entire structure, focusing on a single point. Shirone's eyes maximized their power, searching for a safe path, and soon the entire maze structure began to glow. "I've been through this before. It feels like I'm running for my life." In that instant, Shirone saw the way out. With all his strength, he accelerated to the limit, dashing down the path that had formed in his mind. His speed was so fast that only a golden afterimage remained. Shirone quickly darted through the gaps in the maze before they disappeared. In the maze, Shirone moved like a fish in water, effortlessly overcoming every obstacle. The students watching were stunned, their mouths agape at his power. Mark, being dragged along by Shirone, had lost consciousness, foam at his mouth without anyone noticing. Amy and Cerielle were also taken aback by his actions. All the teachers were deeply impressed by Shirone's performance, wondering how he was able to do it. It was the danger that triggered his latent power, creating a limit at the point of optimal satisfaction. Alpheus seemed to recognize the source of Shirone's hidden strength. But what surprised him even more was that even he couldn't determine the limits of Shirone's abilities. Could it be that the child has no limits? He thought to himself. The maze continued to shift and change, rushing toward Shirone. No matter how it transformed, Shirone was able to dodge it all. Alpheus watched everything, his amazement growing. Now, he could sense that there was not a single stray thought in Shirone's heart. It was truly remarkableno attachments, no distractions. Itella remained focused, observing every second, though her calm exterior hid the turmoil within. Shirone's magical field density had almost reached 99.9%, and despite the chaos, he was calculating everything perfectly. An exceptional talent, but the challenges were perilously dangerous. Shirone moved from one maze to another, with each trial becoming more difficult than the last. When he passed one maze, he noticed that the space between obstacles had narrowed to about a meter. He kept thinking of a solution. Teleporting 10 meters was impossible. If that's the case, I'll divide the teleportation into 1/10 in a pattern: right, left, left. As he thought, his body moved, executing the plan, darting through gaps under a meter wide with the speed of light. Shirone entered the next level where new traps awaited. At this level, the maze formed tight hexagonal shapes like a beehive, which caused Shirone some trouble. He quickly realized the problem. They don't want me to take a straight path. The space is extremely narrow. Without hesitation, Shirone immediately found a way to adapt. In that case, I'll break it down as much as possible. Iruki, excited, clenched his fists and shouted loudly, startling everyone. What's that? Bending light? Someone couldn't help but ask when they saw how Shirone navigated the maze. Iruki, why is the light being bent? Light only travels in a straight line. Iruki, hearing the question, explained, it's a simple principle. If you differentiate a circle, you'll get an infinite straight line. The teleportation distance is divided into 1,000th. 1,000th? How can you even calculate that? Everyone asked in amazement. What are you calculating? It's a feeling. It's intelligence. Isn't he the smart one? Iruki replied helplessly. In short, he's a genius. Completely the opposite of me. Iruki continued to boast proudly, but no one paid attention. All the students were in awe of Shirone's talent. A genius? That's terrifying. The maze began to transform, the black threads seeming to have a life of their own, gradually merging into one entity. They grew denser, forming a giant shape, greatly challenging Shirone. It's too big. Shirone looked at what the maze had created, stunned. When he realized what it was, all the teachers stood up in panic and shouted, No, that's the dragon's maze. A massive, terrifying black dragon's head appeared before Shirone. The maze continued to shift, while Thad had already left but still hadn't been able to stop the test, making Sienna anxious. What is he doing? Unable to wait any longer, Sienna used teleportation to turn into a streak of light flying off. Mark, now conscious, looked around in confusion. Where am I? As soon as he regained his senses, he looked up. What met his eyes was the dragon's mouth, wide open and rushing toward him, making him panic and scream in terror. A monster! Mark thrashed about in a panic, while Shirone remained calm, facing the dragon and thinking about how to solve this. I must remember everything, the order in which I saw it. First is the leftward direction. While Shirone was trying to find a way out, Mark couldn't keep his composure, desperately pleading with him. I will live a good life. Please save me. Elsewhere, Sienna had teleported to where Thad was. As soon as her feet touched the ground, she rushed toward the control room shouting, Teacher, what's going on? Hearing this, Thad asked, Sienna, what's happening here? Sienna, impatient, ran over and shouted, "There's no time. Stop the equipment now. Has the exam been canceled?" Thad, still not understanding, assumed the exam had been canceled long ago. "It hasn't been canceled. I heard Shirone and Mark are still in the exam." Sienna's loud cry startled Thad. "What?" Without thinking, Thad turned and rushed toward the control panel. "Sienna!" Thad called out their names in a panicked voice. "Itella!" Itella ran to them, her voice frantic as if trying to warn them about something. "Shirone!" Just as the dragon lunged forward, swallowing both of them inside. All the students watching screamed in fear, too terrified to look. Both the teachers and students were in panic as they watched everything unfold before their eyes. Time seemed to freeze, the clock's hands moving 1 second slower. The hands of the clock rewound about a minute before Itella arrived. Standing in front of the dragon's giant teeth, ready to open its mouth, Shirone tightly gripped Mark's shirt. Mark, utterly terrified, along with everyone around him, was paralyzed with shock. Amy and Cerielle clung to each other, screaming in fear, unable to watch what would happen next. Shirone stood before the monster, tapping into his power, his eyes glowing a brilliant blue. Drops of sweat rolled down his face, and everything around him seemed to stop moving. A minute before the collision, he remained calm, as if filtering his perspective, telling himself, "I'm still alive." His thoughts continued, and the neutrons in his body worked at full capacity. A tenth of a second, a burst of light shattered all barriers. 100th of a second, the light weaved through square blocks, 6 paths, and a total of 9 teleportations, including the escape route. 1,000th of a second, he realized with worry that he had made a mistake. The light was blocked by a red wall. Shirone thought, "Mark and I can't escape this path. We need to find another way." Back in the present, as the clock struck 12, the monster lunged forward aggressively. The people around him were terrified beyond measure. Amy panicked and screamed, calling out to Shirone. Alpheus intended to use his power to save them, but suddenly realized something, stopping in his tracks. A flash of light streaked through the darkness, as if trying to escape from the deep abyss of the universe. Loud explosions rang out from the flashing light in the blue sky. Everyone below rushed toward the light, shouting in unison, "No, this can't be happening." From the light, Shirone shot down toward the ground, pulling Mark with him, leaving everyone astonished. Whispers filled the air. Did he really escape? Is he not a ghost returning? Itella stood frozen, stunned by what was unfolding before her. Then, suddenly, she turned and ran away from the scene.